Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says occupied Kashmir will get independence soon due to Indian government's blunder. Addressing a rally in Azad Kashmir, he said before August 5th, 2019, the world was unaware of the issue, but New Delhi itself internationalized it. Khan said as an ambassador of Kashmir, he briefed US, Germany, Russia and the UK leadership on the issue. He said since August 5th, the UN has held 3 meetings on the clampdown and Indian atrocities. Khan said the world is demanding an end to India's brutal curfew and communications blackout in the valley. The Prime Minister said the day India lifts the curfew, there will be a tsunami of protests in the valley, demanding nothing less than absolute freedom. Khan said the anger and resentment of Kashmiris towards India will lead to its freedom, and that time is not far. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will visit Pakistan on the 13th of February. Foreign Office spokesperson Aisha Faruqi says taking the Indian-occupied Kashmir dispute to the International Court of Justice will be discussed during the meeting. Erdogan will also address a joint session of Pakistan's parliament. In a media brief, Faruqi said both the sides will also mull over an agreement on dual nationality. She said the Organization of Islamic Cooperation is committed to the Kashmir cause and has passed several resolutions. Faruqi said for decades the OIC contact group on Kashmir has played a dynamic role in highlighting the issue. The spokesperson said Kashmir Solidarity Day was observed all over the world yesterday. Moving on to Indian-occupied Kashmir, where Indian forces have martyred 65 Kashmiris since the illegal annexation of occupied valley on the 5th of August last year. 21 were martyred in the last 30 days as the curfew and the communications blackout enters its 186th day. Over 900 people have been injured by occupation forces, mainly during protests against India. A top Indian newspaper criticized the government, saying the communications blackout is in place even after 6 months. In its editorial, the Indian Express said other parts of India seem happy with the revocation of valley special status, but Kashmiris are not. It said the absence of free communications and politicians' arrests mean Kashmiris' opinion has not been allowed to surface. Moreover, Indian Muslim leader Asaduddin Owaisi has warned that BJP government may turn Shaheen Bagh into Jallianwala Bagh to remove protesters. In 1919, British Army massacred nearly 1,000 protesters at Jallianwala Bagh in the northwestern city of Amritsar. The all-women sit-in in New Delhi's Shaheen Bagh against the controversial Citizenship Law has now entered its 51st day. Talking to media, Owaisi said Bharatiya Janata Party government may shoot the demonstrators. Meanwhile, Islak, a small village in Maharashtra state, has become the first panchayat to pass a resolution against the law. The village council said the step has been taken as most villagers have no documents to prove their citizenship. Demonstrations and sit-ins continue in Mumbai, Kolkata and other cities. Israeli forces have shot dead 2 Palestinians and wounded 6 others during clashes in the occupied West Bank. This brings the death toll to 3 after a 17-year-old boy was killed in Hebron on Wednesday. Medics say a 19-year-old was killed in clashes in the West Bank city of Jenin. In a separate incident there, another Israeli troop shot dead another Palestinian who later died. Tensions in the occupied West Bank increased after the US President Donald Trump unveiled the controversial Middle East peace plan last month. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu says Ankara expects Russia to immediately stop the Syria government's attack in Idlib. The minister said Ankara needs to work with Moscow to resolve, prompting a retaliation. The escalation disrupted the fragile cooperation between Ankara and Moscow. Addressing the media in Baku, Çavuşoğlu said a Russian delegation would come to Turkey to discuss Idlib. He said President Recep Tayyip Erdogan may hold a meeting with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin after those talks if necessary.
However, the regime's hostility in recent times, especially in Idlib, bothered us all. Therefore, our expectation from the regime's guarantors, and specifically Russia here, is to immediately stop the regime. We are discussing these issues with Russia, with whom we have worked with until now.
The UN Security Council will meet today for an emergency session on Syria following clashes between Turkey and Syrian forces. Diplomats said the meeting, which will be open to public, was requested by the US, France and Britain. The UN envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, will report on the current situation in Idlib. More than 20 people have been killed in exchanges of fire, threatening to further destabilize the region. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan warned if Damascus doesn't pull back, Ankara will take matters into its own hands. Meanwhile, 8 humanitarian aid organizations have called for an immediate ceasefire in northwestern Syria. The 8 groups, including the Norwegian Refugee Council, Save the Children, CARE and the International Rescue Committee, called the situation a humanitarian catastrophe. Russia has blocked a UN draft resolution on Libya because the use of the word mercenary in the text. The resolution voices concern over the growing involvement of mercenaries in Libya. Russia's UN ambassador Vasilina Benzia said Moscow wants the word mercenaries changed to foreign terrorist fighters. The diplomat said there are few sections in the resolution that are of concern. Talking to media, Nebenzia said Moscow has decided to continue discussions with other members. The step has caused doubt on the UN Security Council's ability to vote on the resolution by the weekend. Russia had already stopped the approval process that would have allowed a vote today or tomorrow. The UN's nuclear watchdog says Iran has not taken further steps to violate 2015 nuclear deal since it renounced restraints last month. The Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, says Tehran is enriching uranium. Speaking in Washington, Grossi said he is monitoring the situation and is prepared for every possible circumstance. In July, Iran began stockpiling more low-enriched uranium than allowed by the Nuclear Pact, the first of 5 breaches. Iran says it will reverse the violation if the US removes sanctions and the European states fulfill their commitments. US Senate has acquitted President Donald Trump of both impeachment charges. One Republican Senator, Mitt Romney, broke ranks by voting to impeach Trump on the charges of abuse of power. This report has the details.
The Republican-dominated Senate was always seen as the most likely last stop of the Democratic-led impeachment process against U.S. President Donald Trump. But Republican Senator Mitt Romney's dissenting vote and emotional speech took center stage, knocking the air out of Trump's victory lap. Romney declared Trump guilty of abusing the public's trust.
The allegations made in the articles of impeachment are very serious. As a senator juror, I swore an oath before God to exercise impartial justice. I am profoundly religious. My faith is at the heart of who I am. I take an oath before God as enormously consequential. I knew from the outset that being tasked with judging the president, the leader of my own party, would be the most difficult decision I have ever faced. I was not wrong.
Senate's Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said it was a sad day for the American nation.
This is clearly not a happy day for the nation or the Senate. The Senate turned its back on the truth, on a fair trial, on doing what the Founding Fathers would have wanted us to do. But Democrats walked out of the Senate chamber with their heads held high because we sought the truth.
U.S. President Donald Trump called the impeachment a hoax and said he has been vindicated. He says he will focus now on his re-election campaign for a second term in the White House. The U.S. House of Representatives has promised to widen the net in its inquiry into Trump's alleged misdemeanors.
The daily coronavirus death toll in China has yet again broken a record as the disease killed 73 people in the past 24 hours. Beijing's health ministry says the death toll from the incurable virus crossed 550 with more than 28,000 infected. More in this report.
Amid rising cases of the new coronavirus in China, many countries have imposed ban on entry of Chinese nationals. Taiwan has banned all cruise ships from docking at its ports. This comes after 20 people tested positive on a cruise liner at a Japanese port with 3,700 passengers. Health officials are racing to develop treatments and testing methods. Researchers say that making a vaccine could take years, and a premature product can make the virus stronger as it is constantly mutating.
And so you could have a second wave, much larger, much broader epidemic. So we want to be ready, and maybe that virus changes a little bit. So it'd be important for the vaccine to, A, be available for that if it's an issue, and then secondly, for it to be able to cover some of the mutations that might occur as the virus transmits.
Doctors say the deaths due to the disease will drop only after the virus is thoroughly understood.
At this time, what it causes is a respiratory illness, and the overall mortality is quite low. It's less than 5% and more in the range of 2 to 4%. And it is quite possible that the final analysis of this will bring the mortality figure to even lower numbers.
China has already taken unprecedented measures to curb the spread of the virus, including travel restrictions for most of Hubei province. The health ministry claims over 1,000 people are already on the road to recovery.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. President Nicolas Maduro says President Donald Trump's policies are taking the U.S. towards a high-level conflict with Venezuela. In a televised address, Maduro also branded opposition leader Juan Guaido a U.S. stooge who met Trump earlier in the day. Maduro said Venezuela's electorate will reject Guaido in the elections and it will be a failure of the U.S. president. U.S. officials said any harm to Juan Guaido on his return to Venezuela will have very significant consequences. Maduro said his offer of talks with Trump are not a sign of weakness.
I extended my hand to Trump several times, and he thinks that wanting to have a dialogue is a sign of weakness? No. I say to the people of the United States that Donald Trump is taking the United States towards a high-level conflict with Venezuela.
Contra Venezuela.
In Peru, 10 people are dead after a collision between a minibus and a cargo truck in the southern Arequipa region. The accident occurred in the La Joya district on the South Pan American Highway. The minibus was transporting farm workers from a village when it collided head-on with the truck. Officials said 6 of the victims died at the site and the other 4 while receiving treatment. Local authorities are investigating the cause of the crash. 7 people have died in a Congo virus outbreak in central Mali as the world struggles to contain the spread of the new coronavirus. The spokesperson for the regional government in the central Amopti region, Yakuba Maiga, said the patient 0 is a shepherd. Maiga said the first carrier of the disease contracted the virus from an ox in Samoa village in late January. According to WHO, Congo fever is a highly contagious, tick-borne viral disease which causes severe hemorrhaging. Meanwhile, in Turkey, 3 people are dead and 179 injured after a commercial airliner skid off the runway in Istanbul's Sabiha Gökçen airport. The Pegasus Airlines plane crashed into a field and broke into 3 pieces. Health Minister Fahrettin Koca said the injured have been taken to multiple hospitals. Turkey's Transportation Ministry says a rough landing because of strong winds and heavy rain caused the accident. Istanbul Governor Ali Yalkaya said the accident could have been worse.
Unfortunately, Pegasus Airlines plane couldn't hold on the runway due to poor weather conditions and skidded for around 50 to 60 meters. It fell from this area from 30 to 40 meters in height. 175 passengers, 2 babies, 4 flight attendants, and 2 pilots were on board.
In northern Italy, a high-speed train derailed near Milan, killing 2 people and injuring 30. The Milan-Salerno train was en route to Bologna when it came off the tracks. The accident occurred near the town of Lodi, about 50 kilometers south of Milan. Authorities said a probe is underway into the accident that killed 2 rail workers. Lodi Prefect Marcello Cardona said the Interior Minister has been informed and the prosecutor was already at the scene of the accident. A report by Human Rights Watch says 138 people deported to El Salvador from the U.S. have been killed. The report says the majority of the deaths occurred less than a year after the deportations and some within days. The organization says at least 70 deportees faced sexual assault and violence after arriving back in the country. The report comes as President Donald Trump is making it harder for Central Americans to find refuge in the U.S. Human Rights Watch says the actual toll will be higher, with assaults rarely reported because of the stigma of deportation. Between 2014 and 2018, the U.S. deported over 100,000 Salvadorans fleeing gang violence. Meanwhile, only 18% of Salvadoran asylum requests are accepted, with nearly 1,000% increase in requests between 2012 and 2017. Australians are finally getting a break from the threat of bushfires. Heavy rain has deluged many areas, with a tropical cyclone forecast to hit the country's northwest over the weekend. The Bureau of Meteorology has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for southeast Queensland. Parts of New South Wales have already been inundated by flash floods from heavy rains, which is expected to continue for several more days. Meanwhile, Australian farmers survived raging bushfires in a bunker as blazes swept through Victoria.
Wasn't terrified at all. Now, whether I'm a bit silly or not, I don't know, but I never feared for my life because of the bunkers.
The American legend of the silver screen, Kirk Douglas, has died at the age of 103. He was nominated for 3 Oscars and starred in classical films such as Spartacus and Paths of Glory. His death was announced by his son and fellow actor Michael Douglas. More about the veteran actor in this report.
Kirk Douglas became a fixture in Hollywood movies over a career that spanned 6 decades. He was well known for his rugged looks and masculine roles in war movies, westerns, and Roman-era spectacles, particularly Spartacus. Born in New York, the actor rose to prominence during Hollywood's golden age of the 40s and 50s. He took his first Oscar nomination in the 1949 boxing movie Champion.
It's a very good night for me, and I'm happy that Michael could come. Und dieses Mal habe ich Berliner Weiße getrunken.
As the news of Douglas's death broke, the film industry showed its grief on social media. His fans paid tribute by decorating his Hollywood Walk of Fame star with flowers.
He was one of the last Hollywood legends of the golden era. I mean, that's it. I mean, he's the last legend. That's it. Not a superstar, a legend. Kirk Douglas was a legend.
Back in the 1980s, Douglas visited Pakistan to meet his fans here.
Moodys has announced a stable outlook for Pakistan's banking system over the next 18 months. In its report, the International Credit Rating Agency says the stable outlook is underpinned by robust funding and higher liquidity. Moodys' senior vice president said Pakistan's sovereign credit profile has improved in recent months. He said this was brought about by the high exposure of commercial banks by the government securities. The report said private investment in the country are also likely to rise due to currency depreciation. In December last year, Moodys upgraded Pakistan's outlook from negative to stable, reaffirming the country's B3 rating. China says it will halve its punitive tariffs on the U.S. goods worth $75 billion from 14th of February. This comes a month after Beijing and Washington signed a Phase 1 deal to partially end their long-running trade war. The State Council's Customs Tariff Commission said the cut applies to levies of 5% and 10% imposed on more than 1,700 items. Products hit by 10% tariffs included fresh seafood, poultry, and soybeans. In a statement, the Commission said the reduction will kick in on the day Washington is expected to halve its tariffs to $120 billion of Chinese products. Over the weekend, Beijing announced U.S. imports used to fight the coronavirus will also be exempted from retaliatory tariffs. Stock markets across Europe are trading higher as fears of the new coronavirus outbreak begin to fade. Investors' upbeat sentiments are dominated by stocks earnings. The CAC 40 in Paris is trading 0.75% higher after Société Générale stocks rose nearly 1.5%. Frankfurt's DAX has gained over 0.5%. London's FTSE 100 has gained a fraction, barring early gains as Royal Mail shares fell over 9%. In Asia, Seoul's Kospi led the gains, closing nearly 3% higher. The Shanghai Composite has gained nearly 2%, following positive sentiments as central bank eases monetary policy. Meanwhile, international crude oil prices have gained over 1% as global economy sheds fear over falling demand. Now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.